Here are the tiny Minecraft features that nobody talks about. But after this video, you see that some of these are actually worth paying attention to. Starting with, if we were to apply a name tag to this mob and then kill the bigger slime, did you know that even all the small slimes that come from it will still keep their name tags? Which surely means that just from one size 8 slime, we can get a whole bunch of duplicates running around. Which is good to know that if you feel bad killing one Lola, at least there's gonna be a lot more to take her place. If you build your cow farm like this, you're doing it inefficiently. And instead what you should do is you should bait your cows into a 1x1 hole like this, with a hopper and a chest underneath them. So that, when you continuously breed them, that entity cramming limit's gonna kick in, and after you have 24 cows in your farm, eventually it'll start to kill off the other cows, and you'll have a fully functional automatic farm without even needing that big of a footprint. Minecraft Wolf Armor is a great item, but there's a hidden flaw to its texture. And that is, as users have pointed out, if you go and study the way that a dog's kneecaps actually work, you would notice that the front knee pads of the wolf armor should actually be placed on the other way around. As is currently, they're backwards. But maybe if we consider what the comments are saying, and after all, it's leg armor, not for the joints. And given that it can withstand all 500 HP that we're dealing with this mace, it's clearly effective armor at that too. With a game as open-ended as Minecraft, plenty of sneaky details are bound to pass some players by. And this one with wet sponges is definitely a common surprise. And I swear, every time I see a post about this, plenty of comments are shocked to find it out. So today, let's do something of a public service announcement and cover this for good. You see, if you put a wet sponge into a furnace and then smelt it using a lava bucket as fuel, you can get the water back in the bucket when it's done, which is a neat little Easter egg for sure. And now at least we all know it's there. If you take a close look at your netherite tools, you'll notice that they're different from your regular tools in more ways than one, since that netherite ingot that we added in the smithing table also seems to have added into the handle on the sprite, giving us the only tools in the game that don't have a stick for their handle, which I think makes sense. It explains how we reinforce all of the tools' durability instead of just the top for the pickaxe. Here's how to survive the void in survival mode. Since unlike in Java, if you play in Bedrock Edition, there's actually an invisible floor that exists right on top of the void. So if you were to give yourself plenty of enchanted golden apples and ways to stay alive, then when you drop down onto the void, you can actually still walk along the floor. Not that it's an enjoyable stroll, but it's better than dying outright. If you've ever named an item in an anvil, you're aware that any custom name is bound to end up in italics. But strange as it may seem, Bedrock has a way to avoid that. See, over here we can use the Unicode symbol like so to keep our text upright. And the results not only look nice, but they open up a world of possibilities for pranking your friends, which might just be your cue to give them an enchanted stone pickaxe, name it as a netherite one, and then see how long it takes for them to notice. Truth be told, villagers do not seem like the smartest mobs, and more often than not I'm racking my brain trying to figure out their logic. But occasionally they have their moments. For a case study, take a look at this unemployed villager. Not too impressive, right? But at any workstation within a distance of 32 blocks, and they'll start some serious pathfinding. No joke, these NPCs can even work through mazes to try and find a job, which I'll admit is serious dedication. But why that same villager refuses to restock when the block is right next door, that I'll never understand. Lily pads don't just have to be placed on water sources. They also work on waterlogged blocks, meaning that with this setup, we can place our lily pads directly onto our drip leaves, which offers a nice decoration to add to your next pond. And it also gives us a way to stand on top of the drip leaf without it falling down, both of which are nice to see. Leads definitely serve their purpose, but while they're good for guiding mobs, they aren't as much for decoration, though a bucket is all we need to flip that switch. See, if you were to place an axolotl next to a fence post, tie the two together with a lead, and then pick up the axolotl again in the water bucket, the lead will still be knotted to the pole, which is bizarre, but it'll let us get that extra detail from Minecraft building. And if you ask me, that's a lot easier than having an invisible rabbit nearby. We're all plenty familiar with piglins, but maybe not like this. And to change their look like that, we'll have to head over to the nether. Then we get our piglins into a pen and flip the switch on a dispenser to equip different items, which clearly can create some odd monstrosities. Or if you want to look at it like this Reddit user, then they're just an anime girl wearing a hat. And honestly, I don't know which is worse to see. If you watch closely, you'll notice that in Bedrock Edition, Steve actually blinks. But in Java, that's not the case for Steve, Alex, or any of the new skin variants added in. And thank goodness, it's pretty creepy to watch. This miniature build looks like it's modded, but it's entirely vanilla. And the reason for that is that we're able to use the block display command to make tiny versions of blocks that we can then use to build. And even cooler, there's a plugin that exists that allows you to take your builds and then make them into miniatures simply. Because otherwise having to go in and type in the relative positions of all these inside of a command block just sounds way less fun than actual building. And partner this with the ability to change your scale in recent updates, I think that's all the resources we need to make a very fun Minecraft map. By throwing down seeds for a villager, regardless of the type, they're gonna walk towards and pick it up. And this blew my mind when I first heard it. I thought it would have only worked with farmer villagers, but sure enough, there is a way to get them to follow the breadcrumb trail. Armor stands seem pretty passive. I mean, it's a bunch of sticks on a slab. How bad could that be? But truth is, they can be a bit more feisty than they seem, and you'll see as much if you give them a piece of thorns enchanted armor. With this, the enchantment applies the same just as it would with us, which I'll admit is a pretty funny sight. And while it doesn't do a lot of damage, you'll still want to make sure that you take off your armor like this instead of just punching it off. Trapdoors seem to make for pretty lousy traps. I mean, if you stand on top of it, most of us know what it is, so we're not going to be surprised when it flips open. But what these lack as a trap for humans, they apparently make it up as a trap for mobs. You see, if you or I were stuck in this, we just hop out. But to the animals in the game, they can't just jump on these trapdoors, so that leaves them stuck inside. But what's weirder is that from the outside coming in, they can even clear the jump. So why the difference? Who knows? But if you want a fence alternative, this might just fit the bill for your future pens. I'm sure at some point we've all heard the classic saying that cats always land on their feet, and in Minecraft, that's a fact. But even though these felines don't suffer any fall damage when they drop, they still try to avoid the fall just the same, which I think is fair. I mean, I don't take any fall damage using a water bucket, but that doesn't exactly mean I want to do it all the time. And I think if cats were coded to fall whenever they want, we'd have some plenty weird sights. And I, for one, don't want the ravine next to a village turning into a litter box. It's an old fact of life. Walls make for a great defense. But when you're in a pinch, it's not always easy to build your own barriers, or get through them. So what if instead we could walk through an existing one? Well, it turns out that's not as crazy as it sounds, because as you'll notice, these ender pearls are not just good for teleporting away, but also inside. And if you aim them like such, we can manage to glitch through solid walls to escape, which I'll admit is risky. After all, the ender pearl is going to deal some damage when you land. But if you have the health and time to spare, this could get you out of both sight and harm's way with a simple setup. And if your foe can't teleport, that should be the end of the chase. This command summons a wolf, and this one summons my pet dog Graham every single time. And the only difference is that the way that I got this one was using the F3 plus I command, since that will allow us to copy everything about an entity, down to its exact NBT data. And folks, this will work for any mob or block that you have, meaning they could even copy everything inside a chest, including the item-specific attributes, which is a real lifesaver when you're trying to mess around in creative. And it'll save you from having to look at the wiki to figure out what exact tag you need to change for a blue axolotl. Riptide is a fantastic enchantment, and it's definitely a powerful one when mixed with a rainstorm. But even though it's great, it still has a few quirks I can't quite make sense of. For example, if we do a side-by-side comparison of using Riptide in a shallow pool versus something with a bit more depth, the difference is night and day, and for some reason, the shallow option will always win out against the competition. And while I can't quite figure out why this could be, it does allow us to get some newfound height and distance with our trident. So next time you're looking for a boost, maybe use your water bucket instead of visiting the ocean. So, the Guardian's eyes will follow and stare at nearby players. And notably, this even happens when they have the no AI tag. Look at how creepy this is. It really is just like a seen eye illusion. Make like a creepy grandfather clock thing. I like this, the watch totem design. In 1.19, Mojang added in the skulk biome. Don't believe me? Just watch. Now, the skulk block is coded to spread whenever a mob dies nearby, but there's not really a limit to that. Meaning if we summon a bunch of mobs on top of a skulk catalyst and then let the entity cramming take care of them, that'll eventually let the skulk spread into its very own biome, which is equal parts beautiful and concerning. Making a floor for yourself out of honey blocks is generally a terrible idea. I mean, they're as slow as slime to walk around on, and you can't easily jump off of them unlike the slime blocks. But with that disadvantage is actually where they have their greatest advantage. See, these are great for trapping mobs in place, whether that's making it so that your hostile mobs can't jump out, or keeping your villagers in place in a trading hall so that they can't go around and cause ruckus. But after all, you want them to stay there for their full shift, so if all that takes is making the floor as sticky as a movie theater, I'm more than fine to sweeten the deal if it means that I can go make deals with these villagers. With the advent of bees in the 1.15 overhaul, Mojang gave us something new to put in our bottles, and while that's nice, there is a little detail here I can't quite understand. If you look at the two textures, you can see that a honey bottle is 4 pixels more full than a water one, which is strange, but maybe that's why we can't craft water blocks like so. Minecraft has plenty of care put into its animations, but if you blink, you might not always appreciate them. That is, until you use this command. See, in Bedrock, it's actually possible to use the play animation command to apply different animations to the various mob models. Meaning, not only can we make a piglin dance, but we can do the same to ourselves. And the results can get pretty ridiculous. So if you want to take the time to appreciate Minecraft's vast animation library, this might be the perfect tool for your future dance party. If you've ever made a mob farm, you know you're bound to get some pieces of armor mixed in with the results, which would be nice, but they're usually so battered that it just lasts a little more than a few hits. Or that would be the case if we didn't try this. In Bedrock Edition, when we drown a zombie, you'll get its armor all fully repaired, meaning if you get one of these guys with a full set of armor, that'll save you 24 ingots, and you don't even have to craft it, which definitely means this is worth adding into your next zombie spawner. Steve's technology isn't exactly high-tech, so if you're tired of the dark age Ages and want to bring your realm into the information age, why not try this? By throwing a gradient banner like this on a shield, you can get a pretty convincing cell phone when it's placed in an item frame. And while I doubt that T-Mobile has coverage on your server, this might be a nifty detail to add to your next desk. If you take an extra close look at the top of the bone block texture, you can find this hidden design that starts to peek out. And honestly, the idea to tuck a skull inside of the bone block is maybe a little barbaric, but also pretty funny to see. With the help of glow ink sacks and gray dye, we can make our signs look like they're screwed down to the wall. All we need to use is this Unicode symbol called the bullet point, and we'll get that convincing round shape, which if we then type our text in the middle of the sign, it's gonna look a lot more important. And it should get your friends to pay attention to the message, so long as they don't die at a different color. Nobody likes being on the receiving end of knockback, but while it's a pain to be tossed around, this might make it necessary. See, in Bedrock, it's possible to repeatedly punch against your buddy's shield. So if we do that, we can use the knockback that we receive as something of a boost to the new heights. And then we could alternate our positions with them to net some serious verticality. And it might just be the way you and your pal escape out of any future rock in a hard place. And the best part about it is that this is basically just an unintentional feature, so it's not a glitch that's gonna get patched. But whether Mojang takes it out or not, one thing is for certain. It's a trick that's sure to give you and your friends quite the boost. Here's how to make TNT completely safe. Since even though a prime TNT might explode like this regularly, if you were to ignite the TNT and then put it onto a half slab, then the amount of blocks that it actually blows up gets significantly smaller. In some cases, only the slab explodes, which is a lot better than the chain reaction we were looking at otherwise. So if you want to explosion-proof your base and you don't have obsidian, then this deal proves that you might be better half off. Llamas are neutral mobs, which means they only become hostile when provoked. And lucky for us, using llamas to create armchairs doesn't provoke them. Now, putting one of these in your living room by itself doesn't quite do the job, but surprisingly, all we need is a splash of invisibility to do the trick. When under this effect, we can only see the carpet, letting us get a proper selection of cushions for your sofa. And while the methods might be questionable, it's hard to deny the results. And with the help of commands, we can keep these llama helpers invisible long enough for the guests to arrive. So if you're tired of squatting on yet another stair, this might be the best solution. Instead of harvesting your crops like this, try a redstone lamp. Because with the way that the mechanics work for the game, these crops can only exist when there's a certain amount of light source nearby. Which in turn means that if we were to flick this switch off, break one of the crops, the rest will then update so that they're broken too in the new light level. And then you can turn back on the lights and pick up all the new crops that you just harvested. Which is probably the simplest amount of redstone that you need to make an automatic crop farm. If you actually look at these walls we placed nearby, you notice that there's a frog placed inside of the gap. As RaiseWorks pointed out, the frog's hitbox is so small that it can squeeze right in between 4 walls placed in a square like so. If you have yourself a flame bow, you're able to shoot powdered snow blocks to destroy them. Though I honestly don't know why you'd do this instead of a shovel or a bucket, but it does make for a fun pastime. And who knows, it might be good for a hidden snow minigame, where you'd have to shoot the powdered snow within a sea of regular snow. And to me, that feels like the kind of challenge you'd see out of Breath of the Wild. If you've messed around with the summon command, you know Minecraft has some weird entities in the code. And since they're non-traditional, it means we get some odd behaviors when you mix them, like you'll see here. Now, when you light a block of TNT on fire, it turns into a prime TNT as you would expect. But what might surprise you is that if we then shoot this new entity with arrows, our projectiles just bounce off, which means that the only way that we're mixing TNT with arrows is through command blocks. Most people build their elevators the old-fashioned way, and the original water elevator is about as classic as they come. But if you've got a few hundred bottles of honey lying around, you might want to keep this trick in mind. See, if we were to take all of these honey bottles and make them into a honey block, you notice that they don't quite have a full hitbox. And if you place 2 honey blocks like so, you can see that where they almost meet, a player's hitbox is able to interact with the water inside, letting us lift up almost like magic. And by doing this, we get to play around a lot more with how our standard water elevator looks anyway. Since if you wanted to, you could add a map art item frame and completely hide the inside. And at that point, it really does seem like magic. As you'll notice, the cartography table has the same texture as the dark oak planks, which means that if we mix one of these cartography workstations into our table like so, it'll look as if we've placed different items on top of the table. And I think that's a really neat effect, especially if you don't have item frames on hand. Or really, even if you did have item frames, there's no way that you're putting 3 items in the same frame, so this is something special for sure. If you're looking for the fastest way to mine in Minecraft, then you're gonna need this on your leggings. Since even though dive mining's become less popular since its inclusion, with the addition of the Swift Sneak enchantment, now it's worth doing again, because the name's misleading. It doesn't just give you a swift sneak, but also gives you a swift crawl. And with Swift Sneak 3 on our leggings, we can get some real speed while we're mining in a 1 block tall tunnel. So as long as you don't have claustrophobia, it's worth adding to your to-do list. At the very least, it gives you a reason to go down to the ancient cities, because if we're being honest, the recovery compass isn't worth it. This anvil will never hurt me, because even though you do take a lot of damage from a fallen anvil, if an anvil were to pass you by, you don't take any damage, which gives for the ridiculous sight that you see in this example. Here we are in survival mode, and no damage is taken from the anvil, which I guess makes sense. It's still treated like a falling sand entity when it's moving this way, but something about seeing 31 ingots of iron just passes by unscathed Minecraft. I think it's a site worth trying for yourself. Minecraft's world border is an odd piece of code, and when you fly out 30 million blocks to visit, you'll see as much. But while there's been plenty of attention given to these glitches, I think this is equally strange. See, if you get a spider next to the border wall, then the mobs will start climbing it as they would any other, which I guess makes some sense, but I'd figure that since we can't place any of our blocks on it, they'd have nothing to grab onto, and it's maybe the only chance they'll ever have it climbing up to build height. Why is this minecart different from the others? Well, as it turns out, the minecart hopper has a slightly different texture as opposed to the other ones. And not just on top, but if you look at the bottom, you'll see that the hopper part of the minecart actually pokes through the bottom, which makes sense, otherwise the items would just fill up into the basin, and that doesn't seem all that helpful. But if you didn't look at it from this point, I don't think any of us would have noticed. Even though you can't see it, it's not a surprise that the ground underneath this snow layer is made up of grass blocks, and you can break it to see as much. But while that grass might look normal when we place a torch, when it's underneath the snow, it's something entirely different. And through the help of an enderman, we can see that texture for ourselves. See, if an enderman were to pick up one of these snowy grass blocks, they'd ditch the snow and just be left with a strange silver turf instead. And while it doesn't offer much functionality outside of being a grass block, it is still a cool souvenir. Every now and then, it seems Mojang has fun coding in certain loot tables. And while some of those are dark, such as the turtles turning into bowls with lightning, others like this are just clever. As we know, if you kill a zombie, it has a rare chance of dropping a potato, which is handy, but you might want to be careful to not use a fire aspect sword here, because if you do and a potato drops, it'll be baked instead, and that'll delay your farming dreams. So while it does offer a better snack, it might not be best for your long-term return. Without breaking any blocks, how would you get out of this hole? Well, silly as it seems, a door is actually the solution, and maybe the best one, since if you place down a door and then flip it back and forth, you'll be able to hop up the steps of the door and go up 2 blocks at a time, which can be exceptionally useful for helping you get out of a hole or an animal pen. And that way, any of the other mobs that are trapped in there with you, they won't be able to hop up the blocks while you're pillaring out to escape. This goat looks like it's in trouble, but don't worry, since the truth is that goats are fully capable of doing parkour, and all of a sudden this lava pit doesn't feel as inhumane. And the reason for this is because that little bit of hesitation that it does before a jump is actually the goat calculating where it has the best arc to. And you can see all of those calculations visualized in this post here. It's pretty cool, which goes to show that even if you're the best at parkour, you'll never be the goat. You ever wonder what it's like to be a mob? I mean, there are so many different shape-shifting and morph mods out there that I'm sure you've thought of it once or twice. And while those third-party options will give you one interpretation, there's actually a way to do this in-game. While in spectator mode, if you interact with a mob, you can actually see from their point of view, and some of which even offer up different filters and effects. So whether you want a creeper's green vision, a spider's reflective eyes, or maybe even just to be safe in a shulker shell, then by all means, go ahead and try this feature. Instead of placing all these flowers by hand, we're gonna do it with a bow. Strange as it may seem, using the place feature command, we're able to swap out an entity for a decoration. So if we set up the execute command like this in a command block, that'll be able to turn our spray of arrows into a beautiful flower garden. And if you want to make this whole process even faster, I'd recommend using a multi-shot crossbow so you get even more of a spray at the end. Just make sure not to shoot anybody while they're enjoying the roses. According to Mojang, honey is the stickier block when compared to slime blocks. But why do these only stick to slime blocks then and not the honey block? Well, even though it's on the bug tracker, the reason is because honey is 14 by 15 by 14, while slime is a full 16 pixels on each side. And that would be why we can't put our vines, glow lichen, and the rest on top of these, just because there's not enough room. Scale in Minecraft is a funny thing, and while some of it makes no sense, like why are the husks taller than the zombies, other examples are pretty satisfying. Say we grab ourselves a dropper. Now, by itself, there's nothing too satisfying about it, but throw a button on the face and you'll notice that it's the exact right size for the dropper's mouth. And in my book, it makes the dropper look more like a wine bottle than a piece of redstone. Though I'll add that this only works with certain orientations, because thinking about it, it's probably for the best that we don't gag them anyway. But if you want a neat detail for your building, this might fit that bill. Here we've got the smallest farm. this one's made by a folk that we're gonna call Noob from the Nether. But basically the idea here is that we've got the egg farm is technically the smallest farm in the game. So if we go up high into the air, composter, rail, minecart, and we gotta get our piston to push it in, and then a button, and now it's technically the farm. Then you just add your own chicken. We're gonna do it with spawn eggs. You'd use regular eggs in survival. Okay, we've found the limit. Look, this is gonna double as a chicken farm in this case. So then all your eggs would fill up. So if you were to take a tadpole, like so, feed it exactly a stack of slime balls, that'll speed up its growth process in such a way where as soon as we place it down out of the bucket, it'll instantly turn into a frog. All right, and a good way to show this off is going over to the Nether. So usually it would just suffocate, but if I place it down like so, sure, the water's course not gonna be there, but our tadpole friend should be fine, thank goodness. Okay, it didn't fall off. And now we've got the warm variant of the frogs. So if you wanna get all the frog lights, just do that and then bring the tadpoles with you from the mangrove swamp into any biome that fits the cold, the temperate, or the regular variants. This is my pet parrot, but it needs a cage. And since it's so small, it doesn't need a whole pen like regular animals, but it can also fly, so the fence isn't that helpful. Enter the scaffolding block. With a single scaffolding like this, it looks like a wooden bird cage, and it has just the right amount of room for a parrot to sit snug inside. And even when they're in the cage, they'll still have plenty of room to dance when you put on the chirp music disc. Boats and lava don't mix, so why does this one not burn? Well, since boats are entities, we can summon them in with a command like this. And then by putting in vulnerable in the tags here for the NBT data, that boat just isn't gonna die. And you'll see as much when we get out into the lava. It doesn't even sink down into the fluid. We're able to just skate across, no worries. Which might be even cooler than using boats to jump across the lava like this. Though if you want to switch to survival and try this out, I will mention that you need fire resistance. The way that your hitbox is, you dip a little bit too low into the lava, and unfortunately, even though the boat's invulnerable, it doesn't mean that you are. So apply some magma cream before you try this. This might look like a fall to certain death, and really, it will be, unless you're able to land in the 1 pixel worth of water coming from this waterlogged chest. And the reason it's exactly 1 pixel is that chests are exactly 1 pixel smaller than a block on all sides. And if you really want to make this trick seem even more impressive visually, then you can let the water flow as far as possible into the chest corner so that it's also as thin as it possibly could be. At this point, I just think it's funny that this near microscopic amount of water is able to break our fall, well, something like a cauldron's never been able to. And honestly, if it gives me another opportunity to call out the cauldron for being a bad block, that's a worthwhile skill in its own right. All right, here we've got the smallest player size. So on my regular size right now, I press this button, bam. Now I'm able to go hang out in my house. This candle's massive, observer. Well, I guess you'd even be a smaller player size too because you're only just a head. Yeah, our jumps are completely thrown off for this. But look, I'm so small that I can actually peek inside of blocks the camera doesn't know what to do. Here's how to crawl through a half block space. Now in Java, we're just gonna hit our head on the slabs. It's a roadblock. But in Bedrock, not only does the boat go through, but us along with it, which could make for a great secret entrance if your friends don't know this trick themselves. After all, we're going through a space even thinner than what a trapdoor would do. At first glance, these slimes look normal until they start jumping, since now you can actually add the jump boost effect to slimes. And yeah, I don't really think they're coming down at this point. Because lily pads are rendered so thin, if you were to run on top of a row of these, you'll notice that the particles that you give off from your feet are actually the water particles instead of the lily pads, which I actually think makes sense. It's like your feet are splashing up water instead of splashing up parts of the lily pad. We got a shulker, and we make him small. Yeah, look, I can step up a little bit on the block. So technically the smallest walkable block would be a tiny shulker. So you even raise up when you stand on it. That's funny. Unicorns don't exist in Minecraft, and call me crazy, but I don't think we'll get them anytime soon. But you know what's the next best thing? Getting to be a unicorn in Minecraft. Kind of. You see, by using the replace item command, it's entirely possible to put an end rod on the player's head and then become your own kind of narwhal. Is it practical? Of course not, but it definitely looks ridiculous. And honestly, the replace item command is just full of so many silly quirks anyway that if you have an afternoon, you might want to get familiar with it. Just mess around and see what you can find. It's well worth a shot. The textures in the game are fairly simplistic, to say the least, which sometimes means it's hard to make out what's what. Like the hearts you see while riding a horse. For the longest time, I never understood the texture. But thanks to user LittleDominator64 on Reddit, a closer look actually shows their saddles, which I'll admit zoomed out is still pretty hard to see. But once you put them side by side, the picture clears up, especially if you recognize the pixels of the metal bit of the spur. Now, I won't claim it's a great texture, but hey, now I know what it's supposed to be, and maybe you do too. Flowers offer a cute way to add a splash of color to your build, but by this point, everyone's seen the standard offerings. So to get a bit more unique, the new Spore Blossom might be my new favorite. See, by placing down one of these in an invisible item frame, we can shrink down the size and attach these to both our floors and our walls, giving us a new plant to play around with and a fun detail for those lush caves. Minecraft is known to reuse a few textures, and while they can sometimes be groan-worthy or even confusing, other times it goes unnoticed. Like, take the smooth and regular stone blocks for example. Looking at them like this, the difference seems pretty big, and honestly, their biggest similarity seems to be in the name, not the texture. But add a pressure plate to the top, and now it's easier to see. As is, it's tough to recognize which block is which when the borders share the same texture. So while it's a very minor detail, I do have to commend Mojang here. They reused a texture, and I was none the wiser until it was pointed out. Campfires can be a useful decoration to have in your world, but by this point, everyone's already familiar with these things. So to step outside of the box, these armor stands are a sneaky solution. See, when placed in lava, these things burn pretty bright, letting us use a piston to add in our block of choice and successfully create a new illusion. And honestly, I'm surprised it works as well as it does. But it just goes to show that there's a couple more options out there than just using yet another flint and steel and a block of netherrack. Now, endermites are pretty annoying, but this is an easy way to get rid of them. Since they're so small, they actually just suffocate in soul sand.
Oh, that's so cute. Look at him go.
So if we get a parrot out and we get it to play its idle sound number 6 is a distorted version of the word hello in English. That's gotta be it, hello. So there you go. The smallest possible particle in Minecraft, the ash particle. Look at it, bye-bye. It was also here for a small amount of time too. Yeah, there's just that singular ash particle. But look, it can change colors sometimes. Wow, whole lot of things packed in that one little pixel. Well, here is the absolute smallest staircase. Look at, look at this. So the reason that we have rabbits inside of them is so that we're not able to move them. And then if I get swiftness 2, you gotta really maneuver yourself in right here. But eventually you can scale it just fine. I promise I'm going up it. It might look all the same. You gotta really be in the center of the model. So this is all speed based. So look at this. We've got like exactly 1 pixel of staircase to move up here. This is ridiculous. When you start 1.19, you'll want to collect a bunch of powdered snow. And why is that? Well, with this powdered snow, we can make a farm like this to filter out our magma cubes down from their biggest size to a smaller stature. And once they're small, we have our frog eat them and get ourselves a handy frog light farm. Especially if you build this near a magma cube spawner from a bastion. Banners open up a ton of options, but that doesn't excuse their setbacks. Let's face it, a 2x1 rectangle isn't always the size you're looking for. And while they might not fix that entirely, maybe armor stands are the next solution. As it turns out, by putting banners in either an armor stand's hand or head, you can keep the detail all while the item gets smaller. With just a wooden shovel, we're gonna make your door look 10 times more realistic. Since by changing the grass that's underneath the door to a grass path, now it'll finally have that small gap underneath that'll make it look like a real door. Because at least in real life, if there's no gap underneath the door, it's not opening that much. So this will fix our ones in Minecraft, all while being insanely simple to do as well. Minecraft famously has its share of visual quirks, and while we've talked at length about those in the past, this one just cracks me up. See, if we were to hold a ladder as an item in our hands, it has about the same amount of depth as anything else. But when you place that same ladder on the side of a block, it turns paper thin. I mean, this ladder has less depth than a ladder item dropped on the floor. And unless we get something like default 3D in the base game, I guess it'll be a fun thing to notice going forward. If you're tired of your cat sitting on your chest, then this cage might be the answer. Though that might sound a bit cruel. What's actually happening here is that if we use a piston just right, it's possible to push our pet cat inside of a root block like this. And then with a moss carpet over top so it can't jump out, we make sure our feline stays in timeout. But don't worry, because the blocks are transparent, it's never gonna suffocate or take damage, making it slightly less cruel than it would have been. The smallest possible mob that we can ride. Yeah, there we go. You can't even see it. I'm trying to keep it warm. If you want to make seats, this actually is a pretty solid way to do it. I've never noticed this. If you made like invisible baby turtles for everyone to sit on, it would be horrendous, but it looks like I'm sitting on the sand here. The warden's a tough mob to kill, and because of that, it can't drown or burn alive. So if you were to put it on top of a pad of magma blocks, it would never die. But if you put those same magma blocks underwater, it also can never escape. Because its movement speed is too slow to escape the current, it'll just spin around in a circle on those bubbles, which is hilarious to watch, but still don't get too close to it. Otherwise, it could still use its sonic boom attack and make it a lot less funny to watch. If you've ever pieced together a chicken farm, then you know that these mobs can lay a ton of eggs. And normally we're left cleaning up that overflow. And while that's true, it's apparently not a universal fact, since this chicken right here is incapable of laying any eggs across its lifetime. And what makes this one so special? Well, the reason is that chickens spawned from a baby zombie jockey are coded to not lay eggs ever. And this is likely to prevent any kind of zombie from picking up that egg item and never despawning. I swear, even after playing Minecraft for 9 years, I'm still constantly learning new things to do. For example, I've played Bed Wars and Hunger Games hundreds of times with my friends, meaning I've shared countless pieces of armor, weapons, etc., any item you can think of. And somehow, in all of that time, I never realized that you could just hold down the Q key to throw out a steady stream of items. No, I would never do that. I would always just end up throwing it out of the inventory screen or mashing the Q button instead. And really, I don't know if it's all that practical, but now I know it's there, and maybe you do too. Pop quiz, what block is shorter than a slab? Actually, it's a cauldron, because clearly the block itself when you place them side by side doesn't look that much smaller, but rather when you stand inside of a cauldron, then you'll be standing at half the height of someone who's standing on top of a slab. The days in Minecraft are pretty short, and at only 20 minutes per cycle, you're sure to see these sun and moon textures fairly often. But if you ever wondered how that rotation works, after all, Minecraft's a game of blocks, so an orbit like this seems pretty nonsensical. But turns out, we can actually find the science on display. See, if you head underneath Minecraft's world, you can see the sun and the moon moon are constant objects, even rotating under us in the void. And that gets readily apparent when you play on something like Skyblock where there's no bedrock layer to hide it. But more importantly than that, it gives us this cool shot of a sun on the black sky, and for me that's worth it. 27 easy ideas to do when you're bored in Minecraft. Minecraft's a great game, but we don't always know what we're supposed to do in it. So why not start with something simple like this, fishing. As you can see, just getting a nice music disc, your fishing hook, and just hanging out. It's not a bad way to spend an afternoon. Ah, there you go. This will speed it up. Is this true in real life? Do fish actually like rain better when you're fishing? I have no clue. But there you go. Fishing's not a bad idea. You can even do a little fishing contest with your friends. I got a salmon and a pufferfish. All right, we don't have a point system, so I'm gonna say that I win, but it was close. You did well, but it was close. Over here, we've got not only a couple of dead fish, but also an uphill AFK machine. AFK machines used to be all the rage because you would get kicked from servers for inactivity, but now we don't see them as much. Though the idea of building something like this, which lets you just go and do a little water slide, lazy river style thing, is fun. And I mean, this is a very simple idea of it. You could make this go all kinds of ways. You can even make this just go up to your base if you want like a passive elevator. We've shown that off in the every staircase you can make in Minecraft video. I think it's pretty handy, even if your hands aren't on the keyboard. Ooh, as you're gonna see here, we've got a bunch of cool looking plants, and that goes into this point, which is just, if your world's starting to feel a little bland, go plant foliage around it. I mean, you might not get observers growing on yours like I do, but just by adding in little things like glow lichen here and there, some of the rare ones like the pitcher plant could be cool, or just adding extra little sparks of bone meal and color to your world really makes it more exciting. Just little sparks of color here and there, glow lichen if you want to light up the place without having to add in torches. That'll just stop some mobs from spawning outright. Now we've got things like resin, which you can use as a way of like making your bushes seem even cooler. You have a regular set of leaves, like if I got my jungle leaves here, add on resin, and now it looks like its own kind of berry bush. Look at that. And now it feels pretty different. Maybe a little overgrown, but you know. And that's not the only kind of things that we have to plant, because we could also replant the block observer just broke, as well as planting farm fields is really fun. One of my favorite things to do when I'm just not sure what I'm doing in my world is just to go through, harvest all my crops, see the kind of yield that I got, and go and plant new ones. It's an easy place to start if you don't know what to do. And sugarcane is especially satisfying to go against. Just break all of them. You can make automatic ones, or just manual is fun too. And if you're gonna do this, I will mention, if you break all these crops with a fortune tool, even if it's just your fortune pickaxe, you will get a slightly better yield. I mean, not if observer steals it. Then you get no yield. And a broken part. Oh, rubbing it in my face so nicely, huh? All right, observer, show me your farming roots. Marvelous. That was well done. Good harvest. You see this, observer? Well, the truth is that this light only is going to turn on at night. And by building these night lights, I think this is a really cool way to decorate your roads. Like here, we're using black concrete powder for the streets. And just decorating a few of these here with these inverse daylight detectors is very fun. By the way, I'm always gonna say daylight sensors. That's how I remember them being. Old habits die hard. But then, when it's daytime, you don't have to worry about the light, because there's no mobs that are gonna spawn anyway. And while we're doing it like this, you could be a little bit more subtle if you wanted to. You could do something like, let's say we want to hide it within some kind of foliage or whatever. And then, at nighttime, we get light sources. Oh, look, with Pathland, it lights up even without having to see it. That's pretty cool. And a perfect place to put this is building roads. And apparently a lot of trees. These look like the kind of things you have to use cut on in Pokemon. But connecting up your areas with all these different roads, this is like a little microcosm. We got our little houses here and the trees that grow alongside. That's really cute. But connecting up your place with roads, one of them, which we're never gonna get a chance to show otherwise, so I'll go do it here, is Observer made this beautiful road that connects the observatory to the mod showcase set. And so having these just make it a lot better if you ever want to show your world to someone else for them to experience. Like I know when we wanted to prep the July series world, we added a few of these in because we wanted to have just a nice way for people to know where to be going. Because what's obvious to you might not always be obvious to someone else. It might be handy the next time you want to get someone over to your farms. Here, everything's a farm, so it's pretty easy to go over to this. We've got an automatic lava farm. So if you're ever tired of going and mining for all of your coal, setting up one of these is going to be handy the next time that you just don't want to go over to the nether. We can cook up all of our raw rabbit, That'd be awesome. Adding in regular doors is pretty boring, and it makes it just get a little less exciting to visit your base. So by adding in different redstone doors like this, even a simple one, makes it way more exciting. You can find your boats and hoes, have a fantastic time. But look at this. I mean, you could build this with a screenshot. That's how easy the redstone is here. So even if you don't know redstone, this is a fun way to learn how to do it. And it's something that you can easily blend into your base, and then you've got a cool new way to go. This isn't just a bunch of lights. It's definitely not that big thermometer that's over in California. This is a redstone silo for your items. So as soon as the hopper behind it fills up, then fantastic. And I think if you're gonna put in the effort to build a farm, then building one of these makes a lot of sense to me. It just makes it seem that much more impressive, and it gives you a simple enough way to track how it's going. Building ourselves a map room. This is gonna be kind of interesting with all of them floating off of these, but make myself my map, put it there, and then if we were to go and get the maps for the other areas, nicely done, observer. But I think what this proves is that even if you're not doing pixel art, like giant map art things, you can still make your maps art by just having your builds on display. I mean, having something huge like the observer here is awesome. I'm not going to see that from any angle that I'm ever going to see while playing, but here, there you go. Well, this is kind of a tall house. What it actually is a parkour base, observer. Oh my god, I already can't do jump number 1, dude. I'm getting kicked out of Parkour Civilization. By building this, I know that I'm one of those people who just loves to jump around the world as soon as I'm getting bored. Dan is especially one of those people. Just adding in little bits of parkour can make it pretty fun to just explore your base. Even, this is pretty obvious, but just having something simple here, you can kind of blend it into your world if you were to use like trapdoors instead. You can have secret parkour and then leave notes to your friends and stuff up the top. I think that's cool. Yeah, just by adding these in, switching these over from regular blocks over to trapdoors, then you make something that only the true parkour masters know how to get to, or observer if you're using teleport commands. We've got ourselves a kelp farm. Just as fun as it is to go against and sugarcane and break them, by having these here, you can just go through, break the second tallest rung of them all, and then slurp up all of the kelp at the top. I mean, kelp's not a great food source, but using it for something like composting in a bone meal farm actually could be helpful. An observer's gonna show an automated way of doing it here. Seamlessly harvest. It's fun whether you do it or your farm does it. Here we got an aquarium, but you'll notice that the biggest problem is that we don't have fish inside. We're gonna wanna solve that by going out and going to different coral reefs and things and looking for all the different tropical fish that you can find. I mean, there's over 2,200 variants that you can find in this game. So while we're only gonna be able to spawn a few of them here, they don't all spawn from a bucket. The truth is that if you want to do something crazy like mud flaps, this is a really big project to undertake. It's hard to call it necessarily a fun one, but I don't think you'll be bored while doing it. Just maybe don't get too close to the pufferfish ones. And then if you get sick of them, you can just add in an axolotl and start again. We got ourselves a villager house. But the most important part of this isn't actually on the ground floor, but instead the roof. What we're doing is we're making ourselves a TNT cannon on our roof. Oh. I wouldn't recommend it indoors. It seems like a good way to get rid of the neighbors who are mad at you for vandalizing their house. Hey! See, that's cool until you realize that that's still our land that we're vandalizing. This might look like a statue. It probably looks more like a portal, but what we've got here is exploring an ancient city. And while just braving an ancient city alone is cool, what I really like is the idea of converting one of these over to be completely safe. I mean, no other hostile mobs are gonna spawn here, so as long as you clear it out, it's fine. But you clear out all of those, you get yourself a diamond hoe, go against this, there's plenty of XP, and no other hostile mobs, regardless of how dark it is. Observer, how's your bucket clutch? I'm not particularly great at it, if I'm being honest. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna give it a chance to practice. It didn't seem real until I had to switch over to survival to do it. Yeah, baby! Hey! Can you do the one where you like throw it out on this and then pick it up as you fall? Observer from the top rope. Nice. Yeah, baby! See, look, even just right there, we practiced our bucket clutches and got better. What about living in your friend's walls? Taking a tunnel system like this through your friend's base is a particularly fun way to spend your time. And then you just see how long they can notice. I mean, if they already have trapdoors in their base, that's basically just asking for you to go and decorate. And you can hold sneak back there. Remember to always hold sneak while you're back there, because otherwise it will show your name tag. Even if you're crawling, it'll still show your name tag. But there you go. You can go and just hang out in your friend's base. Use this for only the nicest things. Don't go and like dig a tunnel behind their barrel and steal stuff. Or if you do, make sure it's funny. Bed mining in the Nether is a great way to get not only ancient debris, if you want to go and make a new armor set, or if you already have one, you can go and get another set of armor trims on this. But then going through, I'm going to use a respawn anchor because that'll do the same effect over here in the overworld. If you learn how to do it, then it could prepare you for bed PvP as well. Now remember, the way that you do this, we're gonna go over to the Nether. So you gotta remember, you gotta go to the end of the line here and then place it. Yeah, so you have to step back a block after mining. Go ahead, observer, knock him dead. Just not yourself. Every now and then you just have the need to dig a hole. And so you can take after what I've done with my friends, which is just setting up a haste 2 beacon and going and digging down an entire chunk. And if you want to do something cool, I remember on a server I saw a while back, they actually replicated a chunk error above the surface too. So they dug out the chunk and then they just repeated it so it looked like a whole chunk was dug right straight up past the surface. That could be pretty cool too. I mean, you're gonna have the blocks, so you could use that and make it the tower or even have it as your own base. We did a chunk digging challenge in the July series where I had to dig out an entire chunk and then Observer and I would use that as the basis for the blocks that we then used for building. So we made Hank Tower. Very nice. If not a little unsightly. You really have to explain this one because otherwise people are just gonna think your world's corrupted. Observer, it's time to get some horses. Whoa, look at this. All right, we're on location. So, breeding horses, you're now actually gonna have a lot better chances of getting incrementally better horses in recent versions of the game. You're not gonna get the insane fast horses from Bedrock Edition, but eventually we can, sure enough, train our horses and make sure that they're getting better with each generation. And it gives you a cool way to walk around, especially with all those roads we built earlier. Yeah, that's how you get people to love them. You just feed them a bunch of sugar. You're just basically an enabler. There you go. But if we put our powers combined, Observer, love mode. Oh yeah, we should probably cut away for this part. Nice. Wow, they grow up so fast. There you go. Look at that. We're already getting better. Observer, let's take up a brush and a shovel. Let's get to some archaeology. Now, you only have to find one of these, like the Wayfinder, which I found first try, might I add. So, you only need to find the Wayfinder to get the achievement of all the smithing and style ones. But there are 2 other ones that you can find, as well as the music disc. It's worth going through if you find one of these trail ruins, and if you go through, you can make sure that you find all the cool things, like the pottery sherds. And making a full collection, I think it's a solid way to spend your day. Observer found the rare frog light. Bring that back to the museum. So a forest by itself looks pretty plain. But over here, we've got ourselves the rare stripped forest. And I think the idea of just going through and stripping all of the logs in a forest does make for kind of a new looking biome to explore. It's a little uncomfortable. I feel like I'm overdressed in a series of places that are very underdressed. But if you want to join the strip club, then this is a way to do it. That does make me wonder though, what's the creaking look like, the pale wood, when you strip it? Lucky you can't do this to the creaking, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, look at that. Now we got an entire pale oak forest. That's cool. It is still gonna use up your axe's durability though, so watch out on that one. Oh, look at how ghastly it gets. That's neat. Observer, let's turn on moody brightness, because getting to experience Minecraft with way less light, you realize that this game used to be a lot more akin to a horror game. And I remember how unsettling it was to play with like programmer art graphics back in the day. Just see like how eerie everything was. Even Observer right now just looks so much scarier. I mean, I probably don't look great either. I look like an SCP waiting to happen instead of an SKIP. Yeah, look at how dark this is now. So you're telling me you play through this and then you start to see a bunch of mobs spawning, you're not gonna be scared? No chance. I mean, I think there's a reason why they wanted the game to initially be at like moody brightness. Observer, I'm sorry for your loss. Because if you play hardcore mode, it instantly gives you a new way to make everything. As you can see, it instantly gives you a way to connect with the game in a way that we never thought possible. Because right there, I mean, we've died several times in this recording alone. But if a difference between trying a water bucket clutch is having your world or not, it does make it pretty depressing. Like, now I don't have Observer. That's sad. I don't like hearing the dead stir. Hello? That is so eerie. You can't use honey bottle sounds to gurgle back to life. May he rise once again. Hey! As you can see, we've killed a command block and put it on public display because the intention here is to talk about how cheating can instantly ruin the fun of your world. Now look, I get it. Some people like playing with keep inventory on. This isn't to say that one way is going to be better to play. But what I will say is that from personal anecdotes, anytime that I've ever cheated to get back stuff that I lost or teleported or used the /locate command, it doesn't make anything feel nearly as satisfying as it used to. I mean, after all, why would you care about anything in the world if you can instantly cheat like that? Taking a chance to just play the game as it's supposed to be, locking yourself off from certain things, it makes it pretty enjoyable. It's hard to say Observer doesn't look cool though. I swear, I just did some off-camera observing. On top of banning cheating, we could also just ban items outright. So, stopping yourselves from using things like water buckets or elytra or even certain weapons or tools can make an entirely new way to play the game. I mean, if you have to all of a sudden use only an axe as your way of combat as opposed to a sword, then every fight basically feels like it's one-on-one as opposed to an AoE thing. Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's okay. That felt sad. So if you want to ban items like the Observer, but as soon as you get the elytra, I know how many worlds I've played on where I speedrun to get the elytra, and then as soon as I have it, then all of a sudden the world opens up, but it also loses some of the intrigue of how things are. Everything has to get so much bigger when, you know, a little house like this just doesn't seem that impressive to fly to. You can ban the elytra, just maybe don't do it mid-air. Here are things in Minecraft that feel unfair, but they get progressively more unfair as the video goes on. Starting with this problem with grass. We've got a clock because this here is showing how grass takes forever to grow. Now, for one, getting grass to move it, you're gonna need silk touch and stuff. That's already annoying. But then just waiting for grass to grow, especially if you're playing on something like Skyblock or One Block where you need it to grow out of the central place, very slow, very annoying. You need the right amount of light level, so you gotta go and add enough light. But then you accidentally go and place one block over the top of it, you lose it, and then whole process is ruined. And this guy died. That's brutal. So what we've got here is leather washing consistency. So now we've got new bundles. Look at this. I haven't even looked at the bundles in the different colors yet. That's cool. If I were to take my leather armor, dye it up, give me a nice red set, then I accidentally make like a blue helmet or something, a purple helmet. No worries. I could wash that all off just fine. But our bundles, which are made of leather, I can't. No luck. Can't wash them off. I don't understand that. It takes that long to get bundles and then they're just didn't have this one. Back in the old days, coal and charcoal used to look identical. But the one main difference that you would painfully notice this with is that you can't craft charcoal into charcoal blocks. So coal is always going to be better for storage, but charcoal never. I don't know why. And I remember I would have to search through my chests and just accidentally put the wrong thing in the crafting recipe, never get the right recipe out of it. This here is the torch flower not actually being a torch. How disappointing is that? We got light blocks in here, but the torch flower gives off no light despite its name, which basically makes it pointless because the torch flowers, you're not going to be using them to breed up the sniffers or anything. They don't drop the seeds themselves. You can use them to craft, but they just go into one orange dye, which for being an ancient plant, barely anything. It's real disappointing because I love the sniffer, as you might be able to tell by my cape. But this, that could just go right down in the lava. Hey, there, the observer saved it. What are you doing? You're using a display entity on top of the torch to make a giant torch flower that actually lights up. It's beautiful. If you go and get sweet berries and you're eating them, you can just accidentally start placing them around. You lose the sweet berry. You can't even even break the small plant and get it back. And then accidentally walking inside of them slows you down. It's not my favorite. I mean, the fact that it can help you with fall damage is kind of cool, but he seems fine with it. All of this for one of the worst food sources in the game. Can't be worth it. Yeah, Observer's got the right idea with the steak there. Powder snow is one of the more useful blocks that's been added to Minecraft recently, with the help of being able to use it to make floating platforms while we're walking. You can use it for safe landing pads and stuff. But for all of that, it's not something that we can ever craft, and it takes an absurdly long time to get our cauldrons to fill up with it. Granted, you can go find patches for it on top of mountains, but finding those is already a pain, and it just takes forever for it to just fill into something. For one. That's all you get out of it is just one powder snow. So is it renewable? Technically, but is anyone ever gonna do it? I don't think so. I don't even think you could use dispensers to take stuff in and out of cauldrons. There's no way to automate this. Nope, it just dispenses the bucket. You can't even automatically get it so that you don't have to wait around for it. How lame. Copper trapdoor waxing. Now, most of the copper blocks be crafted from oxidized copper. So you pre-oxidize the crafted blocks, you have the whole variant for your palette. But let's say, thanks, Observer, you look pretty nice there. Our watchful guard. But if I'm building out of waxed oxidized copper and I just want to quickly make some trapdoors, I'm out of luck. You can't craft them ever. So the only way to get it is to then get some copper trapdoors and then just wait. And then when they get to the thing that you want, then you wax them and stuff, and hopefully they're in the right variant for what you want. Very annoying. For something that admittedly is a pretty cool building block. I mean, I don't like this one so much, but the other colors, absolutely. This looks great. Pigs have quickly become useless as a mob, because while our cows and sheep will drop secondary loot, like leather or wool, the pigs were only ones that would drop pork chops. Except now, with the help of hoglins, these guys drop pork chops and leather. So in that case, that's just cruel. I mean, I don't think what I'm gonna do is any more humane, but something about being killed while showing a picture of your dead body is pretty rough. But now hoglins are literally the best way to get cooked pork chop farms and leather. It's just, there's no love for our pigs. There's no place for pigs like me anymore. But yeah, pigs have quickly become exhausted in current Minecraft. So, if I were to snip off these mushrooms, it'll never go back. Even if I shock it with lightning, all I get is just a perfectly charred medium rare. It used to be, at least, if you accidentally did this, then you could breed them back together, but now there's no chance. You'll never get them back. So if someone were to come and decimate your population of mushrooms and cows, that's it. And then if I turn it into the weird mushroom cow and shear it, still, it's gone forever. I mean, it is dinner and a show. I will give it that credit. All right, so if I were to get Fortune 3 and mine against our quartz, we're having no luck here. My fortune's really not coming in handy here for Fortune 3. Pretty disappointing. You know, at least with copper, the benefits are getting better. I can go and make farms for this. I can go and make farms for the quartz too with bartering, but that gets really expensive. And the idea of having to do all these different steps just for slightly better building blocks really gets expensive. It's sort of ridiculous that the game has this as one of the hardest to get options. Thank goodness for the stone cutter though. The pedestals. This to show off that gold has the highest enchantability and mining speed of any of the items, but the trade-off of it being so low durability means that we can never actually find a purpose to use these tools, except you're like speedrunning or something. Because sure enough, if I went and got just a gold tool from something like a ruined portal, and then I enchanted it, on lower efficiencies, this ends up being a lot faster than diamond. Even unenchanted gold's better than unenchanted diamond. It's at the higher efficiencies where diamond wins out. But gold is never useful, especially if you've got something like gold ore. For some reason, gold can't break gold, which is a shame because I thought breaking was the only thing that gold was good for. But I take it in here. Yeah, efficiency 4. Look at that. Much better, but still a toothpick, no matter how much gold you put on top of it. Oh, this is one that I know bothers Observer. It bothers me too. The lack of movable tile entities. Now, tile entities refer to anything that can hold items inside of it. So that would be your chest, that would be your barrels, your furnaces, whatever. None of them are being able to move. At least, they can't be moved in Java Edition. In Bedrock, they move just fine. Nope, no luck. But I put any other block there, moves just fine. So, just to show how cool this could be, this is Carpet Mod, already has it fixed, and Nembon, who makes Carpet Mod, does work for Mojang, so I would hope to see this in the game. Look at this, I could just send off all my stuff. Imagine Mumbo Jumbo's moving house with this. So much cooler. There is no tool that is most efficient for breaking glass. Everything is the same as your fist, whether I'm using the hoe, axe. Well, this is painful because I'm in a cobweb. I could use my shovel, a trident, mace. I don't care. Anything would be better. What it used to be, what I would do is I would get a pair of shears, an anvil, and then you could add this back together in survival when that used to work. And then, whenever you broke things, it wouldn't lose durability back in the day, because there was no intention for this to be used this way, so you'd have an infinite silk touch tool for breaking your glass. But now, no luck. Is that the perfect tool right there, the enchanted stake? Ow! It's the perfect tool to remove me. So you go down into the ancient city, which is already a pain. You go and search through, you get all the different echo shards, all to make the recovery compass, which for the life of me, I've never found a good use for. I get it, you die, you want to have this back at your base, maybe in your ender chest, it points you back to get your stuff. But I usually know where I die, and you know, you have to be in a situation where I'm gonna know where I die now. Alright, so I got my recovery compass. I know that it's pointing me that way, but if I forget to leave this at home, I can't get back. It's an endgame tool that's really only good for when you die, which doesn't happen a lot endgame anyway. It's not very well balanced. The most cruel thing I've seen is that you can add Curse of Vanishing to the recovery compass, so then when you die, you lose that too, making it an even more useless item. So, let's say I want to make myself a bee farm for all the different things that I want to start farming. You know, I want honey blocks for maybe a door. If I want this, I can't move this ever without having Silk Touch. Even if I were to go and smoke it out, there's no tool without Silk Touch that lets me move the bees. Break it. Nope, now they just get mad at me. Also, this reminds me that bees have a lot more health in Minecraft than I ever thought they did. You're gonna need Silk Touch. Silk Touch takes forever to get. If you're regular enchanting for it, good luck. If you're going and doing villager resetting, that at least gives you a renewable way of getting it, but it's still annoying. So with the experimental changes for minecart rails, powered rails are a lot more useful because they can go a lot faster. Though, with that, they're still way too expensive to actually justify. I mean, look at this. That is 6 gold ingots for only 6 of these things. At least we get 16 from the regular iron recipe. And because we need powered rails or some weird system of regular rails to make it usable, it's... This is just like a DVD screensaver. It's really impractical to use minecarts. For one, if you want to go the fastest, use something like a piston bolt, which isn't even using these anyway. Yeah, I don't know. It's... yeesh. I don't know. It's not even like our furnace minecarts can really work anyway. So there's no good alternative. And because these are too expensive and you can't just go find them in the mine shafts like regular rails, you're either left to duping, which people have problems with for obvious reasons, or you're left with never using it, which I think is too bad, especially if they want to change these to make them more usable. That might be nice. Even just adding something like copper being the usage for this would make it a lot easier to have. And what are you pointing at? Is that a super knockback bow? I only have half a heart. Yeah, okay. See, this is the best transportation, is that you just give your friend a super punch bow. So let's say that I'm going and harvesting all the crops that I've got inside of this village. And, you know, there's a farmer villager tending to their wares. As to be expected, I'm going through, accidentally he surprisingly did not care about that. Normally, when you would punch a villager, the iron golem would get mad at you, and then there you go. You've made the whole village off limits until you get rid of this. But even if you get rid of it, you still have higher trades now with the villager. It's very annoying, and I can't exactly coerce it easily to be nicer to me. This is shocking. This is the most... Okay, thank you. This is the most laissez-faire iron golem. Commence! Oh. We might want to commence not here. If you're running away from the warden, let's say you finally get behind a wall or something, you dig a tunnel, you think you're safe, all for a warden laser just to blast you right through blocks. You can't even see it anymore. It's very annoying. Some might even say unfair. I had this happen to me in the July series when we were escaping from the wardens in the ancient city. I hated it because you can do all that you think you can. I mean, I'm on wool over here right now. I'm shifting. I shouldn't be on its radar, but before you know it, it'll just trigger you, shoot you through blocks, and you're dead. I get this is so that, you know, obviously the warden's big. I can look at its hitbox. It's too big to fit in here. They wanted some way where you couldn't just cheese it, but getting out of its range, going through solid blocks, and still being able to get blasted through any of the blocks, there's no block that you can put to dampen the sonic boom. That's pretty unfair. Observer, you want to take a stroll in my igloo? Don't pay attention to the basement. Just, okay, well, you can't blame me if I didn't clean up down here. So, we've got our villagers and our zombie. So if I have it on on easy mode, they're just never gonna convert, ever. It's a 0% chance on easy mode. On normal mode, you at least get a 50% chance that it zombifies. Hard is the only difficulty where it's 100% guaranteed that it's going to zombify. So now we're on hard, we at least get this, which seems more forgiving, that you now have the chance to then go and change your villager back. Because if I had a great villager and I lost it to a zombie, I would feel like I was playing hard mode if it just died. So this is one of the reasons why I'll never play on easy mode, because on easy, it's just so unfair that you'll never get it back. It's completely 0% chance of converting. Horses are another one of those forms of transportation that just seems like it's not useful compared to the elytra. And one of the reasons for that is because if you have a horse and we're gonna ride it onto water, you just automatically dismount. It doesn't even give me the chance to try and cross it very well with this. Just nothing. And considering I can't put the horse in a boat, it's just no luck. Now, if I had like a skeleton horse, I can't just give it a saddle in creative mode when that's so stupid. Add that to the list. I can't add a saddle to a mob that I spawned in creative mode. Even the llamas can make it across just fine on water. No, I made it across. So pumpkin pie is something I love in Minecraft. I thought it was gonna be my thing. I like this chicken that we have here, but pumpkin pie takes 3 different ingredients to make, right? You're gonna need pumpkins, you're gonna need eggs, you're gonna need sugar, and you put all that together only for it to be less saturation than bread, which is just wheat. I don't know why. I don't know why they have you go through that much just to get this, and it's worse. It's the same thing as rabbit stew. Oh, you wanted to get me started on rabbit stew? We don't even have this on the list, but I'm talking about rabbit stew now, observer. Rabbit stew, so it's a baked potato, a carrot, a cooked rabbit, and a mushroom of some sort, and that gets us 1 rabbit stew, which gives you less hunger filled than just eating all the things separately. Rabbit stew, only need it for the balanced diet thing, completely pointless. I hate rabbit stew. We're going over to the end, observer. And now, when we're in here and I turn on hitboxes, we're gonna get a nice up close and personal look at the Ender Dragon's hitbox, which is a mess. It's hard to parse this thing. So if I look at this, these green parts are what I'm supposed to be able to hit, but the amount of times you'll be standing underneath and you just start missing. You know, is it easier to go after the tail? You get more damage on the head, but if you can hit it, and you can get hit by it all over the place. So I've just never, I always start missing at some point hitting the Ender Dragon. Very unfair hitbox. This feels like one of the things that they should have updated at some point, but it just kind of stayed the same.
And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video. So see if they're right and have a good one. All right.